How are you doing tonight? Hope you're well. I wanted to make a video here about aliens and the alien agenda on Earth and in this solar system and beyond. Now, I know this is a little bit of a controversial topic, and it is not properly discussed topic in my opinion, but I do want to bring up a few things here. So there is a lot of nonsense going around that Earth is supposedly the only planet with life on it, and there's this continuous perpetuated nonsense that they haven't found life outside of Earth. So a lot of people obviously don't have the proof of life outside of the Earth. However, there is a lot of different sources of information that have leaked out over time that have confirmed that Earth has been under the influence of non-terrestrial or very advanced very advanced beings or species that have contributed to both rise and fall of human civilizations. And there is a lot of evidence currently also on Earth, but a lot of this evidence is being covered up. And there is this evidence can be easily looked up these days. The only problem is that a lot of things are being covered as fictional and are being discredited, and a lot of stuff is not put together to make the whole picture very clear as to what is going on this planet. So there is a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of proof on Earth already that humanity has been under the influence of some other species here that have helped humanity to rise technologically and maybe even spiritually, and at the same time have also caused destruction of the human civilizations. We can see that in Egypt, we can see that in India, we can see that all over the planet where there are ancient structures found on the bottom of the ocean that resemble pyramids. There are pyramids found today of incredible sizes in China and Europe, also throughout North America, Central America, and on the bottom of the oceans. Many of these pyramids are far older than 10, 15, 20,000 years. And many pyramids are also covered by the sands in Africa. We've been lied to and we've been deceived for a very long time about the history of this planet. In particular, we've been told that it's only recently that we are as advanced as we are. And we've been told that the pyramids, for example, were built by slaves who were pulling the rocks and all this kind of crap. Just looking at the pyramids themselves, we were told that they were tombs, whilst most pyramids were actually not tombs, and there were no mummies inside of them. And many pyramids have been built as power generating stations that were able to produce wireless energy that could have been tapped from anywhere within the certain diameter from the pyramid. And those pyramids used Earth's natural energy that flows through certain what we call meridians or grids, where Earth naturally produces electricity that can be tapped into, you know how, obviously. And Nikola Tesla was actually one of those people who replicated some of this ancient technology. And there are other people who have brought this technology forth as well, creating anti-gravitational machines that could levitate very heavy rocks, for example, with very primitive forms of technology by modulating frequencies. Now, so this technology, very advanced. We have had on this planet very advanced technology that could help again create anti-gravity that could be used to cut out temples, for example, in India, out of rock with pure geometrical precision, with laser-like precision. You can, for example, look up temples of Ajanta, I believe it's Ajanta, which are perfectly cut out temples with amazing symmetry inside on the side of a rock. There are many temples in India that have been literally cut out of rock, also from above, where not a single part of the temple is separate from the rest of the temple. Everything is one piece. And basically, we also see that, going back to the pyramids for a moment, we also see that pyramids were, many of them are dismantled, and they had copper rods on the inside, and they had certain different layers that would make a pyramid sort of like a battery with positively and negatively charged parts of it to be able to produce electricity. That's why the word pyramid means, pyra means fire, and med in the middle. And so the bottom line about what I'm talking about today is that we are being deceived and lied to for thousands of years. The history of humanity is one massive big lie that has been fabricated and twisted around for thousands of years. And it is very hard to disclose the whole thing because it is being continuously manipulated and by the so-called historians and archaeologists who are not telling us the truth, or are either afraid of telling us the truth, or they're just simply suppressed. A lot of information is being suppressed. So we have had very advanced civilizations here, many of which were started by beings that were not exactly human, who came here thousands of years ago and have helped in building human civilizations all over the planet. Some of these beings, they were very human-like, and we can see that depiction of those beings in Sumer, such as Anunnaki, which are well recorded in the Sumerian tablets. And we also see those kind of godlike beings that were described in India in Mahabharata, which means the Great War. The book of Mahabharata, for example, goes back to 60,000 years or more. That's hard. They cannot exactly say how old this book is. And it talks about, it uses words like rocket, atom. They talk about space wars, wars on the moon, and so forth. So, so there were very advanced civilizations here that were very scientifically advanced and technologically advanced, who were capable of space travel and anti-gravity, as well as other types of technologies that we would literally consider science fiction today. We've been deceived, as I said, that people before were very primitive. In fact, humanity has been intentionally brought back to a state where human beings had to live on a very primitive level, because it did not necessarily suit those who created life and manipulated life here on this planet thousands of years ago. So there is a lot of information that can be verified, that can be decoded from uh, ancient hieroglyphs in Egypt, all kinds of different like tablets, like Sumerian tablets, and ancient writings from India. Mm. But the main thing is what I'm about to bring about here is that uh, the very fact that they've told us that there is no life anywhere else, that this is it, and they haven't confirmed it, is one massive lie. We are living on a planet that is currently being exploited by species that are some of them are friendly to humans, and they are actually collaborating with the governments. Some of the species are not friendly toward humans and consider humans simply as cattle and food, actually. And we have a lot of proof of that. All you need to do is look up different types of abductions. And I'm going to share something that is very personal to me, and also from different sources that I'm connected to. So the there is a lot of evidence of alien abduction and alien mutilation, well, where aliens or whatever, basically the animals, cows, sheep, horses, have been found drained of blood with perfect circular incisions in exactly same places. The internal organs would be removed. The tongue would be removed. Eyes would be, or one of the eyes would be removed. Skin would be stripped around the jawbone, and internal reproductive organs and rectum would be carved out with laser-like precision, without any blood in the spot. And this has been happening for a very long time. It's not talked obviously on the news, but it is happening, and there is footage of that. Anyone can look up themselves. But also, this hasn't been just happening with cattle. This has been actually happening also with humans. Apparently not as frequent, but it does. And some people wonder, what happens to all these people who are missing, all these children and all that stuff. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of these children and a lot of the people who are missing, uh, many of them are missing actually because they're harvested. And they're harvested. There are different rings, criminal rings, we could say, around the planet that are involved in harvesting human beings. It's just for money. This is very popular in China, for example. Where innocent people, are taken off the streets and harvested for their organs and blood and so forth. Same thing happens with a lot of kids that get sold to certain people. Some Chinese businessmen coming to third world countries where they can easily purchase children for a minimum fee. And so human beings are being harvested for, and specifically for something called adrenochrome. Now, what does it have to do with aliens? Well, from what the part of the evidence is that there is a species of non-humans here that is actually that lives off this kind of stuff. That lives off human blood and so forth. And there are different species here of aliens or non-humans who are very technologically and scientifically advanced, who are experimenting with humanity on different levels by manipulating the DNA and the genome of human species, and also exploiting the planet for its resources. So what I'm about to say will take it further to explain how I know this and what real proof do I have of this. So there is, if you look up people like Paul Hellyer, who was a former Minister of Defense in Canada, He was a very reputable individual who actually spoke about a lot of this stuff, about the alien-human collaboration on all sorts of projects. They're happening both on Earth and in outer space, including on other planets like Moon or Mars and so forth, even though Mars, maybe Moon may not be considered a planet, but there are basically bases there, and they've been there for a very long time. It's just that we are continuously being bullshitted, let's put it this way, that there is nothing there. And but the whole space, pretty much this entire solar system, is just there are colonies everywhere, and we don't know a quarter of the story as to what is going on here exactly. Not just on this planet, but like I said, throughout this solar system as well. And yes, on some level, some people may wonder, why is it that humanity is not wiped out if the aliens are so powerful and they can just enslave us? And you know, that's a very interesting question. But one answer I can tell you is that they don't necessarily want to be seen, and they would rather keep things the way they are because it serves their interests in a better way. Plus, there are certain governing galactic, you could say, laws and rules of engagement of different species that are, from what I know, regulated, not just by one group, but by different groups. So Earth has been exploited for thousands of years, and the species that had manipulated the human DNA here and the DNA of life here, they also, different groups obviously here that came here, they fought over resources, and they also destroyed each other, and usually the losers obviously got kicked out and the winners stayed back. We see a lot of proof of that by a lot of ancient temples around the planet that have stayed behind and that are of incredible, they're structures that are thousands of years old that haven't still crumbled. And I mean, if you look at what humanity can build now, most things don't last even 100 years, and yet we have structures that are incredibly geometrically built and have withstood thousands of years of time. So there are plenty of temples and structures that are left behind from those times in Central America, South America, North America, Europe, as I said, and India. So the different groups that there is a group here, or several groups here, that have been involved in genetically manipulating life on this planet. And they've been doing this for a very long time, and they are also behind modulating human DNA for a very long time, specifically certain bloodlines of people. And it's a hard topic to talk about because it's very hard to prove it to majority of people, those sort of things. However, I can only share my story here. So in my case here, how do I know this? I personally have always been very skeptical about, aliens and any kind of stories about UFOs and stuff like that for many years. And I didn't disbelieve in a possibility of life outside of this planet. But, I was sort of wasn't really interested in any of this stuff until certain things started happening to me in my life. And there was a time in my early 20s where me and my brother, we were camping, and I saw something in the sky that did not look like a plane to me, and it didn't move like a plane. It actually followed every time I moved to the left or to the right. This object moved in the sky, and it looked like it was following me in a way, because it was tracing me whenever I moved right, left. And so I guess it could be explained in different ways. But on that particular evening, I personally, I was looking in the sky and I could see the entire Milky Way and all the stars. And to anyone who has seen Milky Way, I mean, I think it's pretty spectacular, especially when you come from a city and you don't see a single thing in the sky, obviously, most of the time because of the light pollution. So I'm sitting there looking at this object, looking at the Milky Way, and I told my brother at the time that about this object. He couldn't see it, but I at the time I said to my brother, I want to prove to you that there is something there. And so I put my hands up, and I sent a telepathic message saying for the object to show itself. And the object, nothing happened, nothing unusual happened. In fact, there was no object that popped up in the sky or anything like that. But what happened was the whole sky, within about, I'd say maybe about 30 seconds, went completely black. All the stars disappeared. And I thought this was odd because Milky Way just doesn't disappear just like that. So I thought, okay, this is something is off here. This does not make any sense. There was no clouds in the sky. The sky just went black. And there were some stars you could see far, far away in the distance, which was odd. So I went to sleep that night, and I did not have a very good sleep that particular night. I was tossing and turning. I didn't wake up though, but I was tossing and turning. And I woke up in the morning quite restless. I was actually unrested, and I felt that the mattress I was sleeping on, inflatable mattress, was deflated to a degree. So I thought logically, okay, it got deflated. Air gets deflated from mattresses. Maybe there is a hole, puncture hole in the air mattress, so that makes logical sense. But what was really odd was that there was a layer of fluid underneath my body, and it was probably, I would say, close to about half an inch of this liquid underneath my body. And I thought, there's just no way I could even piss myself if I wanted that much, because it was my whole body was pressed into the mattress and there was this fluid. So I talked to my brother, and we were actually in the same tent, which is very odd. And I checked whether there was any fluid underneath him, and there was nothing. And so, okay, we could maybe somehow rationalize maybe there was some kind of condensation, although that's very hard for me to believe that there could be that much condensation just underneath me, but not underneath my brother, which is odd. So, following this event, around the same time, when I woke up in the morning, I had a very weird taste in my mouth for about, which lasted 24 hours every day for about 3 to 4 days. And it tasted something like metallic. So I never tasted anything like that in my life, but it was a consistent taste. And I just thought this is too weird, I mean. And when I started adding the things together, I started to realize that that something is not right, because it's the sky going black, all the Milky Way disappearing just like that, weird object in the sky moving in a way that looked like it was tracing me or tracking me by its movement, and this liquid underneath my bag and a weird taste in my mouth, just really weird, So I kind of ignored it, but I was a bit scared after that. For about 1 year, ever to put my hands up again. I thought like this is crazy, like I don't want to experience something that it's just I felt scared, and then one day for some reason I felt very like attracted to to come up to my window, and I felt very comfortable. I didn't feel any particular fear anymore, and I came up to the window, and the sky was quite black. I mean, you couldn't see any clouds. There was nothing in the sky that could be visible, and I just sent a thought in my mind, saying for whatever was in the sky to show itself, which is very odd, because shortly after, a light showed up in the sky, and another one, and another one, another one. It was it looked like about 8 dots of light in the sky, with one that was relatively big and bright. So I thought, this is weird. Like this, I mean, what's the coincidence here of me coming up, feeling like I need to come up to the window, and this is happening after I sent a message. So I ignored that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And the smaller dots, so there was one big dot of light. So anybody who looked at the sky, if I didn't experience this light showing themselves in the light from the dark sky, I would, if I was just a normal person looking at the sky, I would just think, okay, these are just the stars or whatever it is up there. I mean, like planets, right? And so I went to sleep that night, and I woke up in this room that was white in color, and I'm lying on top of this table, and I can't move. I found myself unable to scream, unable to say anything. All I could do is move my eyes, and then I see there's 2 figures to my right and one to the left, and they look humanoid, like upright, 2 arms. I couldn't see their face, and then I passed out, and so I thought this was weird, and then a while later, again this happened, and this time I'm again on the table, and I see them take a needle and inject it into my left forearm, right in between my veins. And I felt the pain, burning sensation, and I couldn't tell what was going on. It was painful, it burned, and it was a little bit too weird for a dream, to be quite honest, because it felt like it was really real. And when I woke up in my bed, I looked at my forearm, and I still have a mark there till this day, exactly where I saw the needle being placed. So that really freaked me out, because it was a genuine physical feeling I had of pain and burning sensation when the injection was happening. And then after that, I noticed that my veins started becoming very blue, bluish in color, and I noticed that my skin became very capable of resisting high temperatures and direct sunlight for very long periods of time. In the past, prior to this incident, I would go out in the sun, and any longer than half an hour of exposure to direct sun, I would blister, I would get red, and I would blister, and I would be sunburned. After this, whatever happened there, I wouldn't burn anymore. I could stay in the sun in some of the hottest places on Earth for sometimes even over 10 hours in direct sunlight. And I would get very red and sometimes close to a burn, but no actual burn and no actual blistering. And my body would not feel affected by the heat at all, which I found very odd, because I would see a lot of people complain about the temperatures that I was exposed to when I was in the desert, for example, in New Mexico or Arizona. And I was puzzled that people felt hot and I didn't, which was very confusing to me. So then, bit by bit, things start to happen, and day by day, I'd start to notice on a weekly basis I was starting to have this kind of experiences where I was taken. And I remember one particular experience where I was on board of this particular craft. Um, Oftentimes, what I remember was bits and pieces, not entire memory recall of what was happening, but only small fractions of what was going on. And there was one situation where I remember being inside of the craft and then walking out of the craft. It looked to me like when I looked around, it looked to me like a storage at the back of one of those military uh, carrier planes that store all the equipment and all the ammunition and things like that on crates on top of each other. And I actually saw something like that. I mean, there was nothing. It wasn't labeled, but I could see the crates stacked up, and I could see the door kind of opening up, kind of similar to one of those big carrier planes. Um, and the weird thing was when when I turned around, as I was walking out of this craft, there was a being, a humanoid being that looked uh, about maybe 5 feet one or something like that. Very, very skinny, very skinny body, big head, big eyes, uh, no hair. It looked like it had big eyes. I mean, these were big black things on the side. So I presume that these were real eyes. This being communicated telepathically. There was no verbal communication, um, and I am able to communicate with them, and every time I've come in contact with them, they would always make me feel very safe, and I would always feel like they are not trying to hurt me or anything like that. So that was very, very clear. Um, I do have an issue though with some of the other abductions where human beings were found to be actually harvested. There is a lot of proof and evidence of that. So obviously, from what I see personally, from my experience, there are different species here with different agendas. So I found out something from this from the group that I was being abducted by, that I'm gonna share in a moment. But before that, me and my brother and my mother and my father, we all have been abducted at this stage, and many times, and this seems to be happening specifically in my father's bloodline, which is very odd. Um, and so, don't want to go too much into details here about that because I think it's just not necessarily necessary to bring up right now. But so the experiences, these abduction experiences, or what seem to be like abduction experiences, start to occur to me pretty much on a daily basis from my mid-20s onward. And it got to a point where I thought this is just crazy because it seemed to me like very dreamlike. And I don't do any drugs. I'm not into any of that kind of stuff. But experiences were happening, and me and my brother, we have seen objects, as I said, strange objects in the sky. Um, My mother also has been, my mother, my brother also have been chased by lights that came down from the sky. Um, um, Anyhow, let's move on to the other things that I wanted to say here. So this aliens, these groups that are here that I came in contact with, there's different groups from my experience, and many people who talk about abductions and aliens, they talk about the so-called grays, they talk about the tall whites, they talk about reptilians, etc., etc. I came from my experience in contact with, in particular, with let's see here, the grays. I came in contact with the tall whites, what looked like tall whites, at least that's my how I see them. They're tall, human-looking beings with white skin and usually black hair. That's how I saw them. And they're very tall, about 7 feet tall at least. And the other group was reptilian-looking, humanoid, that didn't seem to be very they don't they consider human beings like cattle. They don't look at human beings as intelligent beings or creatures. And I believe that this particular group may be predatory, from what I understand, but they're also capable of what looks like shape shifting from their form into human form. They just have that physiological capability of changing their body to look more human. So there was one experience I had which was very odd, because I remember myself being taken on board of the craft and being inside of this. I could see the craft lifting off from the ground, because the windows inside of this craft were quite big, and you could see from the craft down on the earth, and you could see it lifting up. And there were a lot of other people there who looks like they're also abducted. And so I was brought to a room in this craft where I was shown children, certain children. And these children looked like regular kids, um, except there was something a little different about them. And what I noticed was that even though they looked human, they had abilities that were not very typical for most human beings, which, as a matter of fact, I would say that most human beings are capable of doing that, but not all. So what happened was, I saw some of these kids sitting on the ground, and what appeared to me that they were using telepathy and levitating blocks of like toy blocks, like cube-shaped blocks, and stacking them on top of each other with their mind, not physically, not touching and with their own hands and all that. So that's what was the first thing that I saw. And then I saw one of the kids came up to me, and he looked me in my eyes, didn't say a word, but he said, "Don't try anything stupid." And there was a very clear message in my mind. And this kid may have been maybe 6, 7 years old, and it was a very clear and very strong message. I thought, this is kind of weird. And the next thing I noticed was that there were other what looked like hybrids that were mixed with the reptilian species, and some of the hybrids looked about 80% reptilian, 20% human, and some of them were able to look more human as they get older. So they would take years before they could transform into full human form. Don't know why, but that's what I saw. and I could read their mind, and these beings are, from what I could pick up, they are they they do not think, like I said, they don't think highly of humans. They see human beings as animals. They see human beings as cattle and very stupid as well, which is sad though. Um, but anyways, that's it's another topic. Uh, but that's what I saw, and I saw that tall white. In that group, there was this tall white, this about 7 feet tall. It was a male, and it had white skin, palish white skin, black hair, and again, no verbal communication. This and it looked like this particular being or individual, or he was basically like a kindergarten caretaker. I couldn't describe it in any other way. And from what I understood was that they've been taking my DNA and DNA of other people they've been abducting, and they've been hybridizing new humanoid species. And they've been taking millions of people on this planet, and they've been actually modifying us genetically without people's knowledge. And the reason why they're doing that is according to what I was disclosed, is that they're trying to create new species of humans in order to supposedly save this planet. I think it's a great idea on some level. If it is true, if this is not to necessarily destroy humanity, but actually bring on better human species here, more advanced in terms of intellect, but as well as spiritually more connected to Earth and so forth, it's a wonderful idea. However, I have my reservations because it just feels odd, you know. It feels odd that there's millions of people who are being abducted on the planet. Most people don't have a recall of what's happened to them, because you see these aliens or whatever these beings are, they don't just abduct people by coming into your home and taking you out of your bed. They don't do that. That is complete bullshit. These beings, the technology they have is so advanced. They are able to teleport you out of your own place, literally, make you dematerialize in your bed, and have you on their craft within seconds. And they can do their experiments, whatever they need to do, and then basically teleport you back to your bed, and you don't even know what the heck happened. But usually they're so good that most people do not recall what's happened to them. Sometimes they may have a dream, maybe of some sort, and oftentimes things happen in such a way that it looks very dreamlike. So, to me, this is obviously very, for me in particular, it was very confusing at the very beginning when this was happening, because it was just too surreal. The dream, it looked very lucid. It's like, my God, you know, like I was never interested in any of this stuff. And so basically, that's part of the agenda for this planet. Humanity is being manipulated genetically by certain groups. The new hybrid species of humans are being created, which are meant to replace humanity as it is at the current state. The Earth is actually being terraformed right now to make it more livable for these beings to live here. The whole planet is actually being transformed, which is blamed on this fake global warming. So the planet is actually being changed. The temperature here and the different types of gases that are being present in the air. They are being released into the atmosphere in order to make it livable for some of these beings. And I do know for a fact there are beings here. There are certain groups of aliens here who absolutely want to get rid of humanity. They have no compassion for human beings. And I do believe that a lot of them are behind what's going on this planet. And many of the agendas that have to do with depopulation of the humanity here. So that's my personal experience. And according to different sources, there are people who have had very similar experiences to myself, and who have also had the injection site on exactly the same area as I have. I was born with a perfectly round circle on my leg, which is quite unusual because I don't know too many people with perfectly round circles on their skin, but I do. And I'm also Rh negative blood type myself, and so is my brother. And we have had a lot of very weird experiences, which my brother oftentimes tends to deny, which is very peculiar. But anyways, let's go on to the next point I wanted to make. So one thing what we need to know is that there is hybridization program in place, and there's a plan and there's an agenda to replace human beings as they are, the current human genome, with this new generation of hybrids that are superior intellectually, physically. They're superior strength-wise. They're healthier than regular human beings. They're just another breed that is just like superhuman, you could say, almost on some level. Mainly because they're very, very advanced in many ways, on the psychic level, the intellectual level, physical level. Their capacity is much higher than regular humans. So that is one thing. And there is, of course, the other group that is obviously harvesting human beings, and they've been involved in this for a very long time. This could explain a lot of people being missing for many years now on Earth, and in particular, a lot of children who have been harvested for adrenochrome in particular, which is, interestingly enough, something that is not talked about, and it should be, because there is a lot of harvesting of adrenochrome and blood and organs from children that go missing, and also children who are bought by certain people around the planet from orphanages, as I mentioned. So, according to different sources, yes, this planet is colonized, and it is being controlled by non-human forces that are collaborating with the governments here and actually controlling the governments. The whole thing around the planet is made to look like one big Muppet show, as I call it, because every government is controlled, and oftentimes people are being divided intentionally amongst each other, to hate each other for one reason or another, whether it be religious or racial or cultural, whatever it is. And people are manipulated, and the wars are being orchestrated. The economies are being collapsed intentionally, or boosted intentionally in the other places. Currencies are being manipulated. And even the current situation with this so-called, I call it scandemic, is also something that is very likely part of this whole orchestration of insanity that's basically going on here, except human beings as a majority have no clue as what's going on here. and why. And instead, people look at it on the surface, and they don't know how to put it together, and fall prey to fear and to becoming divided amongst each other. And obviously, so far, it's been pretty successful. However, on some level, it's been waking up also a lot of humans here, which is I'm actually quite happy about that bit. What else I wanted to say? The other thing I wanted to say is, so like I said, there are people who have been abducted like myself. I believe, according to what I have experienced, I believe that we are being modified as well. There is a way to modify human DNA by injecting certain things in order to change the RNA and DNA in human beings through a simple injection. It is not some rocket science technology or invention that's been this way of modifying DNA has been here for a while. So that's one, definitely, this whole thing about hybridizing, changing human species. Again, it is in place here. And the other thing I wanted to bring up also from my experience, because I'm all over this planet quite a bit, and so one thing that's very important is that everywhere I go, pretty much, I always end up seeing something in the sky, as if it's tracking me. And the last time I was in Europe, and I was sitting on the balcony of my cousin's place there, and I saw. As I'm looking in the sky, I saw a light literally fly up in the sky, across the sky, stop in place. It flew at pretty decent speed. It stopped temporarily, you know, and as I looked at it, because again, keep in mind that some of the species they don't communicate verbally. Even everything that I would be saying right now, they know. There is really no secret. I do wonder whether I'm doing the right thing, but I thought I would share this. I don't know. I guess I want humanity to know certain things that are happening here. However, this can help. So this object, as it stopped in the sky, I looked at it, and I could feel there's a connection there. And this object, as soon as I made the connection, it moved. It just flew away, and it flew away pretty quickly, which is not typical for a regular plane. What else? There's another object that me and my brother, we both saw at pretty much the same location where the sky went black. The object was, it looked like a planet. It was red in color, red, orange in color. It was about the size of a full moon, and it was in the sky for approximately 4 or 5 days. And you could easily see this object for about most of the day into the evening, and day by day the object looked smaller. That means it was farther and farther away. And then one day I was looking at it, and I wish I had a decent camera, to be quite honest, at the time, but this object started to move, and it moved above the tree line and disappeared. And again, it was very far away. I mean, I'm not saying it moved above the trees. What I'm saying is I was in a forested area. The pine trees were very high up. And when this object moved out of the view, of course, the trees blocked the view of the object, but it was this thing, whatever it was massive. I mean, to see something in the sky that looks as big as a moon, and that object actually to move, to me that is just crazy. Like that means that it is more than certain that those beings, or whoever they are, that have built this kind of a craft, that this size of a craft, they have built something that's just massive. I mean, the size of like a moon or something, because that was just a giant craft. Yeah. The other thing we need to know is that every planet in the solar system is colonized, and there's nothing here that isn't. Every planet is being used for its resources: water, gold, oil, food, etc. If you look up carefully, you can see that there is a lot of gold being dug up in Africa, and a lot of it, if you really if you look up or connect with the right people who know about where gold gets distributed. I've come in contact with a man who actually was overlooking gold extraction in Africa, and apparently, according to him, a lot of the gold that they dig up goes unaccounted for. They just dig it up and it just disappears, like nobody knows where it went, which is very odd, obviously, to say the least. The other thing that makes me always wonder, this is just food for thought, is that, you look at those big tankers, those big fishing tankers in the oceans, they are catching a lot of fish, right? They have these huge nets where they catch thousands of species of different fish, right? Thousands. Dolphins, turtles, all kinds of stuff gets caught in those nets. And when you go to your regular fish market, maybe you see like 10 different fish, some salmon, maybe some trout, halibut or whatever else, but you don't see 1,000 different species, right? So what happens to all this other fish? What happens to all this other sea life forms that haven't been caught? And I think I know what happens to it. I think it is, again, it gets it's food for those who are colonizing, who are occupying this planet. And same thing happens with the animals. You ever thought about animals that goes for slaughter in slaughterhouses? How come we only get the meat? In most cases, sometimes you can buy the liver, maybe the heart, some kidney, but you can very rarely buy things like pancreas. Some places you can, like in Australia, for example, you can do that. But many places you cannot buy internal organs, and they're not always easily available, and oftentimes you can't get blood. So if every part of an animal can be used, how come we can't get access to a lot of things, even though animals in many cases have been tested to be healthy? So it's a little suspicious to me personally that this is the case. Some people would say, oh, logically speaking, it's maybe not safe for human. That's nonsense. People have been hunting animals for thousands of years and have been eating every single part of those animals. So how come this is not happening? And I have my own formula here. And again, it goes back to the fact that this is the good stuff, the really good stuff that's really nutritious that comes from animals, like their internal organs and the blood, goes exactly to those that are here, and not necessarily for humans as the best source of nutrition. So these are just my kind of foods for thought. Going back to South Pole and North Pole entrances on Earth. There's loads of bases here, a lot of bases on this planet that are under the ocean. They're under the deserts in a lot of places that are very difficult for human beings to get to. They're strategically placed in those places so that human beings don't go and interfere. There's bases on the South Pole. as well, and of course in outer space, most of which are cloaked with cloaking type of technology. And going back to the South Pole, there is a lot of stuff going on down there that they're not telling people. And you can't even fly over South Pole without permission. You can't. I think there is only one part of South Pole, and that's okay if somebody finds different data about that. But there's one part of South Pole where people can go apparently on a ship to watch penguins. That's about it. The rest of the South Pole, which is a massive continent, is not even being talked about. And that is very interestingly odd, to say the least, because South Pole is a huge continent. It's much bigger than they've been showing it on the maps. Yeah, so I don't. I'm just sharing this with some hope to shed some light. Those of you who have had similar experience, high five, say hello, share your story if you had something similar that happened to you. It's always cool to see other folks have similar experiences, and the more of us we can verify this kind of stuff, I think the better, because this makes it much more possible for us to gather proper data based on people's experience that can actually make more sense. Because obviously somebody like myself just filming something like this, shit, if you don't know me and you're not really open-minded to any of the stuff, it just sounds like crazy stuff. And I get it, and it's totally understandable. And if somebody talked to me about this stuff like I did today and I didn't know anything about it, I'd probably think this person is high on some weird stuff. But so those of you who have had similar experiences, I really, really do ask of you, you don't have to tell me your name, just say, hey, I had a similar experience, shared with, with everybody else. What else can I say? Yeah, we are living in very odd times, I know that there's this whole thing about replacement of humanity is real. And where it will all go, it will depend on human beings. Within a very short while, I think humanity, I would say humanity has maybe about 5 to 10 years before people can really get their act together. Obviously, the sooner the better. Nothing is written in stone, obviously. Anything is possible. Obviously, human beings can collectively wake up on this planet and change things for the highest good of all. And obviously that may cost some unnecessary suffering to a lot of human beings here. Because, as I said, there are forces here that are not interested in the good of the human beings. And on some level, those forces are a catalyst for the human beings to wake up. And if human beings don't wake up collectively, it's just cause and effect. Stupid is a stupid does, and smart is a smart does, right? If people fail to realize that only by dropping all the bullshit and all the division between us on this whole planet and mutually caring for each other, caring for this planet and all the other life forms here, that we can actually make it. And only by abolishing the garbage, dysfunctional systems that are in place and the very psychopathic people who are creating and orchestrating problems here and who are also being manipulated, only then there is some hope for humanity. Otherwise, human beings are, there may be some consequences, and maybe that's what some people need to experience. Maybe some people just need some pain and suffering until they really wake up. my biggest hope for humanity is that human beings collectively wake up for the highest good of each other once and for all. Um, because I don't know how many how many of us can come here to help you guys, but this is very interesting time for humanity and for human beings to awaken. So I hope you're well, and share your experience, please. Give me a like, thumbs up if this vibes with you. Say something and share it. Hopefully we can get some gravity with this information so that we have other people also sharing their stories. And again, I do understand there may be some people who may be making weird shit up. That's okay. I get that bit. But I know that I can tell who is saying stuff that's real and who isn't. Other than that, I wish you all the best. I hope that you can be part of the global awakening of consciousness on this planet for the highest good of all the beings here and throughout this whole universe. And yeah, I wish you all the best. And you take care of yourself. Take care. Bye-bye. Be well.